Dear listeners and viewers, welcome to this new wild ride from your favorite deep divers, Natalie and Mark. Hello, Natalie.
Hi, Mark. I'm still in the southwest of Germany, but Mark has changed his location. He's now
And I am
Portugal.
in South. Yes, which is more south Germany, and I'm even South Portugal, so I'm very south compared relative to you, Natalie, and very happy to be here. So it's not going to be the topic of the day, but let's just say that I followed uh, an inner call, and calling, and the call of the land as well, the land of Algarve, in which I am now, and I'm very happy I did so. It is an absolutely gorgeous ecosystem, and not just visually, energetically as well. And I have great alchemy with this place. So I came here, how would I say, without much preparation in the physical world, meaning that I arrived without knowing anyone here, without having any kind of activity here, I mean, which of course is not an absolute necessity these days, but and I came with really minimum baggage, minimum luggage. So, but everything is, working out brilliantly. So, yeah, it's the right place for me at the right time. So, our first episode in, for me, these new settings is titled Crimes Against Humanity. And the how would I call that? The opportunity, so to speak, what actually inspired the choice of this specific topic is well, it comes from Germany. It comes from Germany. Um, the concept itself of crimes against humanity, if I am not mistaken, came from the Nuremberg trials
That's
after,
correct, yeah.
yeah, at the end of World War II, and it is being currently used by an international network of lawyers, but that network is spearheaded by a German lawyer called Rainer Füllmich. And if I don't
Wow, good pronunciation, yeah.
Rainer Füllmich, who is also active in the United States, in order to challenge the various dictatorial and totalitarian measures that have been imposed by governments worldwide using the supposed COVID-19 epidemic as, I'm just going to say, a reason, even though that's not the word I have in mind. Um, there, the, okay, so um, we chose this topic. I'm not sure exactly why, other that it enables us to um, address a very wide variety of topics, because this situation is a very encompassing one.
I also feel the last episode has been about humanity's pushing back.
Mm,
And actually, now they're not just going onto the streets and shouting for their liberation,
mm,
but now actually you have people who are inside the system, so to speak. You have people who are well known. This lawyer, this German lawyer, he had been in the diesel scandal. He is. he's very familiar with how to sue a company in the right way,
mm,
because he recognized it would be too tricky to go after all of those governments. So he said, okay, the whole lockdown situation worldwide is actually because of the PCR tests. And so he went after them. And so I feel that crimes against humanity is really, it is really now humanity taking their rightful position and really working, using the system against the system, so to speak. Yeah,
mhm, yeah.
that is what really spoke to me. Yeah.
So, why is it conceivable to speak about crimes against humanity in this situation? Because because of the specific context in which that legal notion was initially articulated in the framework of the Nuremberg trials, what people often have in mind when that expression is used is a Holocaust type situation, so a genocide, which are not exactly the same concepts, actually, even though they are close. Crimes against humanity is not necessarily a genocide. Now, there might be arguments to also use the term genocide in the situation that we are currently facing. One might argue in favor of the position that the way the elderly have been treated in this whole situation since it started is a form of genocide with genocidal intentions. But what could be a crime against humanity? Now, I I must confess that I haven't had a look at the Nuremberg Code before we started this episode, but if I just use common sense in order to assess the meaning of the expression, I would say that uh, just look at what a crime against an individual is. You know, it is any malicious infringement of an individual basic rights, like the right to live, the right to own your property, the right not to be assaulted, the right to your physical integrity, the right to have honest interactions with other people. So, at the collective level now, you can take any of these infringements against basic rights and expand that to the whole human collective, and that would be a crime against humanity. So, have we had in this situation crimes against humanity? Well, it seems pretty obvious that the entirety of the human collective has been on the receiving end of all the measures that have been taken by various governments and institutions since this whole supposed pandemic started. And
Actually, if there is something we have in common worldwide, people are being stripped of their constitutional rights.
mhm,
What is actually a right against a crime against humanity
mhm,
if your constitutional rights have been taken away from you, and that is worldwide. Now we have really the situation like in the Third Reich that is now a worldwide um, situation. And of course, you have different laws in different countries, but in Western countries, we have the right to go where we want, to see our family, to go for our business. In the German constitution, you have the right to do your business, for example. In the United States, their constitution is really, really clear about that, that everyone is a free person to go about their daily life as they wish to, as long as they are not breaking the law and harming other people. And we have been stripped of that, just using the back door that just calling out a pandemic, where they have been using a trick for that even, is then you meeting someone else said you are harming or bringing risk to another person, and what is not the case at all. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, there are many ways. There are many ways to demonstrate that crimes against humanity have been committed here. In the facts to begin with, uh, in the situations that have been imposed upon people, depriving them from their freedom of movement, depriving them from contacts with their family, depriving them from the economic activity that they need in order to ensure their physical survival. Um, so these are the most basic infringements that have been committed, but there are others like hiding the numerous treatments that are available in order to cure this disease, and there are many, and making false representations in order to justify all of this.
And this German lawyer, he goes after that, after
Mhm.
the false, the scientific false
Mhm.
PCR tests.
Mhm.
And he was explaining this quite well. I didn't know that we have a bad guy, a German bad guy. He's the German version of Dr. Fauci. He
Mhm.
is Professor Drosten is his name. And I knew he is the one who is working together with the government, and you can see him on TV 24/7. He's in every newspaper, and he is said to be the expert. He is working for, the chief virologist on the Charité in Berlin.
Mhm.
So I thought, yeah, he has some expertise. Yeah, he's actually a really bad guy.
Yeah,
Cause.
he has,
uh,
he has a lot of expertise at deceiving people, indeed.
yes, because he already did it in 2009, while the swine flu. He was also claiming there would be hundreds of thousands and millions of dead people. So he has been proven to be really, really wrong with his
Mhm.
assumptions, that he's really giving out flawed numbers, and they now made him again the chief of operation, and they are only listening. The government is only listening to him, to
Yeah.
nobody else.
And if I may interrupt, Natalie, you see the exact same situation in many countries in the world, meaning that the same people who had it totally wrong during the H1N1 crisis, the same people are back now. And even though they were totally wrong from start to finish and did all kind of absurd projections, best example, Neil Ferguson from the Imperial College in London,
Yeah.
the same guys now were back and they were given the podium again, they were given the microphone again, they were given almost exclusive access to the media, much worse for that matter than 10 years ago. because there was still a possibility 10 years ago to hear some dissenting voices. Now that they have been totally excluded from public debate, there wasn't any public debate to begin with. And you saw all these guys maneuvering again and being listened to like gurus again. And that should be enough to indicate that there was real malicious intent behind this whole operation. So you have the infringement and you have the malicious intent. So you have the damage. So you have the three elements that are constituting the definition of a crime.
And what I did,
And because it is global, it is crime against humanity. And not only because it is global, but because it is also targeting very specifically what makes a human being human. Like, for instance, the right to have contacts with other human beings.
and I want to come back to the PCR test because they are using, for all of their measures, they are only using these PCR tests. And what I didn't know, this German professor Drosten, he is the one who actually has been building this version of the PCR test. I didn't know that because the PCR test, I forgot the name of the guy who invented it. He won the Nobel Prize, and he said this is just for scientific reasons because you are taking a sample and you are actually blowing it up like a copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. So it is just for scientific, for research, and not to be used for diagnostics. He said that.
Yeah.
So, but they are using it for diagnostic, and it's even worse. It is common knowledge that if you do this process of blowing it up more than a few times, it is really flawed. And if it is more than 35 times, you cannot say this is even a scientific method anymore because it's so flawed. So this German professor Drosten, he in the beginning of January, he wasn't using even stuff from Wuhan, but he chose an old strain of SARS, hoping it is close enough to the new one, and was building this new PCR test and sending it to Wuhan, where they said, it was reacting positive. Of course, someone who had I don't know, the sniffles would react positive. And he is doing this 45 times. So it is blowing up every molecule that you ever came close to. And that is also the reason why you have so many people who have no symptoms at all, and not even to mention that they don't have the normal flu, but really have this COVID. There is no relationship proven between those two. And that is why I said the German guy is really a bad boy, because he is responsible for all those PCR tests now used worldwide to lock down all of those people. And that is the reason why this lawyer why they are going after the PCR test. Because if they can prove that this is flawed and is the whole foundation for all the measures, for all the lockdown, whatever restrictions, is simply taken away, because at the moment we just have a case-demic. It's not a pandemic at all.
No, in fact, the time when the journalist could scare the general public by hammering the number of deaths every day and by showing some hospitals with beds filled with supposedly very sick people is over. They cannot do that anymore because that disease, whatever it was, has lost its virulence. And so the only thing they can still do is to hypnotize people with cases, whole positive cases. They're on the rise, on the rise, on the rise, on the rise. That's the only bullet they've left in their charger. And they are just like the PCR test, they are magnifying and amplifying it to make it look like there is something happening. And it works great. That's actually the foundation of hypnosis. You focus all the attention on a single point. That's how you hypnotize people. And that's exactly what is being done right now. Cases, 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 cases.
So I find it really intelligent to use this point and turn it against them and say, okay, let's have a look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, it is true that indeed Carey Mullis, the inventor of the test, said never use it for diagnostic purposes. One of the reasons it was created was to enable the police to identify the genetic profile of a criminal by isolating DNA, RNA sequences on a crime scene and possibly matching it with the genetic profile of a criminal. Not only did the inventor say that multiple times, but even better than that, it is written on the packaging of the test kits in full letters, in plain letters for everyone to see and to read, just like it is written on the packaging of big mask boxes. This mask doesn't protect against COVID-19 nor any other type of virus. But they're being made mandatory, just like they would very much like to make testing mandatory. It's just, I believe it's just a matter of having enough resources to make them mandatory for the entire population.
They are going after it. They have now new tests that can bring you results within 20 minutes. And they are really going after that. So they are thinking about that people who want to go into the cinema or into bigger events. So actually you have to test yourself before you're able to enter.
And before you board a plane and
and all of that. Yeah.
But regarding the PCR test, okay. First, one of the very fishy things about this Dr. Drosten test is that it was fast-tracked by who? I'll tell you who. By the World Health Organization. It was fast-tracked the moment it came up with it. Who immediately jumped on the bandwagon and said, this is the test we are validating and this is the test you can use in the entire world, which is not how things normally work. Normally, other scientific actors, other scientific centers around the world are using the test, and progressively their consensus emerges as to whether or not the test is valid, which was absolutely not the case in this situation. It was just an instant decision by the World Health, yeah, big laugh here, the World Health Organization. So that's number one. Number two, why a PCR test? Why not a blood test? Why not a saliva test? Well, maybe because, just as you said, when you go beyond 35 cycles of amplifications, it's devoid of any meaning. It doesn't mean anything anymore. So knowing that these tests would be meaningless and there would be lots of false positives, some scientists say up to 94% of false positives, meaning people who test positives, but they're really not actually positive. And mm, meaning they're not infected, really. They're not infected. They test positive, but they're not infected. So why why PCR? Well, number one, it looks like its meaninglessness made it particularly relevant for people who wanted to traumatize the population. And number two, there is that issue of these giant sticks that they shove through people's nose and to the back of their throat. One really interesting piece of information that I recently heard, and that came from a nurse who's seen these sticks for a few years now, is that up to 2020, these sticks were twice shorter. All of a sudden now, they've become gigantic for no discernible reason other than pushing them as far back as possible. And to what point exactly? To the blood-brain barrier. Because the way they work is that you scratch to take some skin cells that you're going to analyze. Where do you scratch? You scratch against the blood-brain barrier, which is only 1 cell thick, meaning it is extremely easy to damage the blood-brain barrier, which can have really very, very serious, a whole bunch of very serious consequences for people's health. Some say, and I don't have any certainty about that, but it seems like taking everything into account, it seems like a valid assumption to me, even though it's not certain at this point. Some say that the purpose is to inject nanoparticles into the brain.
Yeah,
And
we are here in an area that is highly speculative, but reading about those swab tests, it really doesn't make sense why you, if someone is really sick, he just, I can't even be with the person in one room without being infected also, yeah? And why would you go so deep? And the place where they go, I heard different opinions. If it is possible to go through the brain-blood barrier, but the place where they go is where the olfactory nerve is coming out of the nose into the brain, where your smelling is actually taking place. So there must be an opening. If the nerve is going into your brain, there must be an opening in the skull somehow. And now something comes to my mind. It is said recently that a byproduct of this COVID situation is that many people have problems with their taste and smell,
yeah,
and have brain issues.
yes.
What if this is the case because the virus was actually brought very close there? And maybe this is a reason. The testing is a reason.
Yeah.
Would be, but of course it's speculation. So we don't have a fact there, but just to think about, there might be a possibility, and people who are more into the medical side of the whole story, they might do their research. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, other than everything we have already mentioned, there is also the fact that, as you said, Natalie, that whole test was designed based on the genetic profile of another coronavirus, which means that if someone is supposedly tested positive, it can mean that that person is actually carrying another coronavirus,
Yeah,
another one of the four other
yeah.
identified coronaviruses. So that that person can have some common cold virus, or a bit, of that virus. I'm not going to say of a dead virus because viruses aren't really alive. They're not biological organisms. They don't breathe. They don't reproduce. They don't eat. They don't excrete. They're not alive. So you can't really say that the virus is dead. You can't say that the virus is broken or destroyed, but not that it's dead. But so these people can have a bit, a tiny bit of a virus, and they're also going to test positive. And now it comes out that it has come out that genetic sequencing is eerily similar to that of a chromosome of the human genome. So they could even find that chromosome and say, ooh, you're testing positive for COVID-19.
It's crazy. I have here, I have a number. Dr. Buttar said in our body we have 650 trillion viral cells anytime. So having a virus inside your body doesn't mean anything at all.
Mhm.
Of course, we actually need them. I don't know the number of bacteria, but we also have a huge number of bacteria in our body.
Mhm.
And he also said if you would take out all of these bacteria and viruses, you would drop dead because they are coexisting with us, and normally they are co-workers in our system. And so it's totally stupid to search for something that has a similarity and that is blown up and that might even test positive for having a chromosome in
Yeah,
your body. It is madness.
it is. And that's actually one of the subjects that we discussed in our episode called "The Religion of Science." That the germ theory is fatally flawed. The germ theory on which the whole circus we are currently witnessing is based is flawed from the start because it was based on the assumption that bacteria, when that theory was started, and then later on when viruses were discovered, viruses were inherently pathogenic. And one of the reasons why that was believed is that they were also believing that the blood was sterile. And so that if you found some of these guys starting with bacteria in the blood, it meant, ooh, there's an infection. But indeed, we have more bacteria in our body than we have cells. And without bacteria, we're dead. So the theory was completely wrong from the start. And uh, the immune system needs to be fundamentally um, how would I say, the understanding of the immune system needs to be completely changed because it is not what we believed it is. It is not a kind of artillery system, you know. It is not a kind of war machine. Yeah, the immune system is not a war machine. It's an information treatment system. And now we are better able to understand that because we are swimming in information treatment in our technological environment. It's all about handling and processing information. Well, the immune system, the biological system that is providing us with immunity, it's just doing that. It is processing information. So it's completely different. But let's go back to crimes against humanity.
Because actually what happened until now is that all of those information of other doctors and scientists have been totally ignored.
Mhm.
And now people are really taking the government to court, they can no longer ignore the facts.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why I feel that really something is changing, because it is happening in many countries now. And those lawyers who have chosen to work together and have interviewed a lot of experts on their medical expert for the court case. They are offering lawyers of other countries the material they have collected for free.
Yeah.
And that is unspoken of, the lawyers. Normally they don't work for free, and also those, they are not working for free, but they are offering this so others can go, can walk this path in their own countries, dealing with their own laws. And we
Mm-hmm.
have we have had, I think Michigan in the United States has been said to be unconstitutional, the lockdown. And something I came across is, I don't know if our listeners are familiar with David Whitehead from Truth Warrior. He has a really good blog on, on YouTube. And he had a famous lawyer, Rocco Galati, as his guest,
Yes.
and he is suing the Canadian government over the
Yes.
lockdown measures.
Yes, absolutely.
It's great, and I really recommend to listen to that interview, because yeah, it's been really interesting, because he also brought up some numbers, how people are really have been damaged, because he said in Canada there have been 5 times more drug overdose and suicides because of the lockdown measures. That's really huge. And there have been 42% more heart attacks.
Mm-hmm.
Because people don't get their treatment, or they're afraid, they're stressed, they don't go to
Yes.
the doctor. And England and Wales, for example, just in April had 10,000 people more dying from Alzheimer's disease in April, just
Mm-hmm.
in April, um, than the year before. Because people have been left alone, they didn't receive the treatment they would need because of the lockdown measures. And just in 1 month, 10,000 more than the year before. And so he said the number of people who died are 12 until 4 times as high as the numbers of COVID death.
Yeah, 12 to 14, yes. And there have been at least two other studies focusing on that same question mark of the ratio between lockdown death and COVID death, even though the number of COVID deaths is actually unknown. And it's the
Yeah.
numbers are not reliable, because we're not going to enter that whole, um, we're not going to open that whole can of worms, but these numbers have been vastly inflated. But using these vastly inflated numbers, the conclusion of the study that's been done in Canada is what you've just seen, what you've just said, sorry, 12 to 14 more deaths from the lockdowns than from COVID. A study in the United States said, and they stressed the fact that their estimates were very conservative. They said 10 times more lockdown related deaths. And a study in South Africa went as far as 20 times more lockdown related deaths. So it's massive. It's absolutely massive.
That might be also the case because in Africa, the South Africa, the measures have been more strict. United States had not strict measures everywhere.
Mm.
So this might even explain why they said it's 10 times and South Africa has said to be 20 times.
Mhm.
Because the more extreme the lockdown is, the more people are harmed. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know exactly, I don't know whether these lawyers have already started their class action, which is the collective action that are allowed in the American and Canadian law system that are available for anyone to join wherever they are. They can join the class action so that one attorney is going to represent possibly tens of thousands of people, claimants, well, whatever, people who want to make a legal claim in court. Um, they're doing that in multiple countries now. I know in France there is an attorney association that is representing something like 12,000
Oh,
people to challenge some of these measures. And well, the thing is, what they're trying to do, they're trying to really coordinate all these different actions to make one big, giant, humongous case that would create a precedent. And I don't know whether they have already made their claim in court. I wouldn't be surprised because the video I saw from Fuellmich was very, they looked absolutely ready, you know. So my guess is it's already in front of a court somewhere. And um, what did I want to say about that? Yeah, for lawyers, for attorneys anywhere in the world, and for individual people, it is important to have that information and to see whether they want to join that action. Because from what I heard, my understanding is that it doesn't matter where you are, you can still um, join such an action. So
I think I will put the link in the description
yes.
for people, and that was why I felt we really have to go out with this topic, because
Mhm,
now people, as they have been suffering so much, people, over the
mhm.
last few months, and they need something they can do actually, and see they are not alone. Of course, they knew they are not alone because people like we are going out and we share our insights and thoughts, and so people knew they are not alone. But now people really recognize they can do something about the situation. Yeah.
Yes, and um, I now would like to take some. Um, I would like to put all this into perspective, the whole topic of crimes against humanity, because they are being committed right now, but they are nothing new. It's not recently that crimes have started to be committed against humanity. It started a long time ago. And it's just that the concept wasn't there. The expression hadn't been articulated, but many crimes have been committed against humanity. So if we now go the way of the super woo and examine the whole spiritual and exopolitical context, we can say that, for instance, the genome, the genetic identity of humanity has been manipulated and tampered with multiple times by beings who really didn't have good intentions towards humanity, no matter what they said, no matter what ideological reasons they might come up with to justify their actions. Their actual intentions were to diminish and to control and to enslave. in subtle ways. So if you touch someone's, well, in this case, if you touch the human genome in order to somehow disable human beings, how would that not be a crime against humanity by its very definition, by its very nature? Now, if you are some deity in high heaven who wants to feed upon humanity's devotion and harness their creative energies for your own purposes and for your own selfish benefit in order to make yourself bigger and more powerful. And you actually use all kinds of deceptive tricks and manipulations in order to convince human beings that they are weak and that they are unworthy and that they need you in order to do something with themselves, and that they need your protection and that they need you in order to save them and support them and feed them and be a providence for them. How is that not a crime? To make someone completely dependent upon you based on a false representation about themselves. That's the definition of crookery.
And maybe this is just perfect. Because now, as we have reached this point in time where everything is so condensed, I really feel a little bit like the past is happening again. It reminds me of the Third Reich, it reminds me of the witch
Yes.
trials. So we have the past playing out again, but this time it is really so in your face
Hmm.
because it is happening in such a short time, and we now have our worldwide connections. We can talk to each other over the internet, for example. We can exchange notes. People can come together to assist themselves and fight together. So now, actually, the bad guys went all in and they're just losing. Because now humanity is recognizing, oh, I'm not helpless. Actually, I'm not helpless, and I can do something about it. And for example, just seen from the medical standpoint, it didn't work with the swine flu. They wanted to kill a huge part of humanity back then. They tried it again with COVID, and always this phenomenon of herd immunity that came in. They see us as sheep. So this wording, herd immunology, is really funny because it's actually working somehow because we are super woo. We have this information, just like I said. Um, I believe I had that thing in March, April, and Chris Gio from Beyond the Veil, he too had it, and I felt I am observing it, I'm studying it because I'm then bringing into the field my awareness. And this is actually everybody who has been dealing with it is giving the information to the whole
Hmm.
collective of humanity, like the 100 monkeys.
Yeah.
Um, Everybody has heard about that, I believe.
Hmm.
And if 100 monkeys have learned something, even monkeys living on a totally different place who never had contact with these 100 monkeys, they also know this, what these 100 monkeys learned. And it's the same with the genome
You
of the
know.
human
Hmm.
that is able to now deal with this new threat. Yeah. And so even if they try to change our genetics, sending some really nasty stuff into us, we will learn to deal with it. We will learn to create kind of immunology. What's the wording?
Immunity.
Immunity, yeah, for it. And so, yeah, they really try to screw us, but actually it is,
Screw you.
it doesn't
Screw
work.
you, loser.
It's not working. And that's a good thing.
Okay, so I feel like segueing from what you've just said into a possible scenario
Okay,
that
I have my coffee. Go ahead.
so a possible scenario that might manifest itself really soon. And full disclosure, we've heard that one from our good friend George Cavasilas. So for people who are not familiar with his work and material, this might come as novelty. So the guys who are currently behind this whole maneuver of the paranovirus, controlovirus, uh, scamdemic, plandemic, they've been at it for quite a while. It's not something they've come up with last year. Something I learned is, well, it's been presented over and over for decades in fiction, for instance, in TV series and movies and novels and anything fiction you can imagine. For instance, I learned that just this morning, Boris Johnson's dad, Stanley Johnson, that gentleman several decades ago, authored a novel called Virus. And in that novel, the government was releasing a virus to create an epidemic in order to enforce control measures upon the population. Sounds like really good literature to me. That man has quite an imagination, I must say. Like so many others had such a brilliant imagination, or were somehow prophets, apparently, because they all described exactly what's going on right now. I also remember that gentleman whom I met in Belgium a few months ago. While we were all waiting during the lockdown outside the health food shop in in rows, we were waiting for our turn to enter the shop. He was telling me that a long time ago, when he was doing his military service, he had been instructed in nuclear bacteriological and chemical weaponry. And the instructor had told the class, well, in times of peace, the best way for the government to control the population is via epidemics. And at the time, he couldn't believe it. He laughed when he heard that because it seemed so far out. So, uh, all that to say that this has been prepared a long time ago, and the guys who are maneuvering in order to make this happen, they are the old elite. They are the old guards uh, of the old New World Order, so to speak. They are the old New World Order.
Don't confuse me.
And they're so, my goodness, just look at them. George Soros, Jacob Rothschild, they're so old. And metaphorically, they're old as well. Their system is really old. It is tired. It is worn out. It's at an end. So these guys who are really from the dark side of the synthetic light spectrum, they are sort of how do you say that in English? Um, Playing their last cards, so to speak, in an attempt to keep themselves in power for maybe forever in their imagination. But they're giving their all. They're giving it their all. One serious possibility is that in a not very distant future, in a pretty close future, actually, they would be completely swept away by another faction of the synthetic light empire. These ones more to the positive side of the spectrum, that would indeed arrest these guys and judge them for crimes against humanity. And so many people would cheer them up. You know, who wouldn't be relieved and happy to see all these monsters judged for their crimes? Now, we must be really, really mindful of the old problem reaction solution strategy. And that mechanism, that strategy, is really used in a fractal way, meaning that it is used at this level, but on a broader scale it is used as well, and on a broader scale it is used as well. So if we look at the situation at the smallest scale, you have the fake pandemic, which is the problem that is being created. You have the reaction, not just the fake pandemic, but all the measures, all the lockdowns and mandatory mask wearing and social distancing and all these horrible things. So that's the problem. The reaction is the population being completely exhausted and traumatized. And the solution would be, hey guys, we have a vaccine now. So you can forget about all these horrible things, social distancing and masks and lockdown. That's all over. Just take the vaccine. Just take the vaccine with the nanoparticles and be plugged into 5G and have your digital identity passport that you need to take everywhere in order to access anything. So we have total control upon you. So that is problem reaction solution. Seen from a wider perspective, you have the problem being all these horrible people doing horrible things and wanting to enforce absolute tyranny, horrible tyranny upon humanity. You have the reaction of all people who have become aware of that and who say, no way, you shall not pass. This is not possible. We don't want to become slaves. Solution? You have all these heroes stepping in, putting an end to the whole pandemic, arresting all the horrible murderers, judging them, and then introducing their new system. So what would be this new system? Well, if you look at what's happening right now in this month of October, the satellite network that's been put into orbit by SpaceX, Elon Musk's society company, is going to come online, meaning that they had been launched so far, but the whole network hadn't been activated as a network. So that is happening during this month. And it's just, at this point, a small part of the whole, how would I say, of the whole number. You know, what I mean is that they want to put much more satellites into orbit.
So they reach every area, but now they just reach certain area.
Yeah, they want to put tens of thousands of them into orbit. And so far they have maybe, I don't know, maybe a few thousands at most. What that means is that that network is going to be incredibly dense. Incredibly dense. And its technological capabilities are far beyond what we have been told. it's the word next level probably comes short when you think of what this network is going to be able to do, because it is what is going to manage the Internet of Things. Among other things, it is going to manage the Internet of Things. And it's not 5G that is going to manage the Internet of Things, because if that scenario unfolds as it is supposed to unfold, and we will see about that, because, you know, there is a lot of uncertainty, I believe, currently, because of the timelines being in flux and collapsing and merging. It's really difficult to have a fast grip on what is actually going to happen. But if that scenario unfolds as it is supposed to, um, that satellite network is going, that cocoon that is going to surround the Earth is going to become the new seat of power. And it will be so, first of all, it will be one giant artificial intelligence at work that is going to micromanage human society. And very close to the Skynet network in the Terminator movies, with the difference that instead of being dark and dystopian like in the Terminator movies, it would actually look utopian. It would look like extremely beneficial, among other things, because they would say, well, you don't have to worry about 5G anymore. We have much better. We have much better technology. You know, it is much further away from people than 5G towers would have been, because, you know, these 5G towers, they would have been everywhere in your vicinity. And after all, it seems that that technology was pretty hazardous, or not that good for your health. But with this, you don't have to worry about that anymore. And you can see that, by the way, Elon Musk has been positioning himself as an anti-Bill Gates,
Yeah.
an anti-lockdown, anti-corona imposition figure. So you see that every chess piece is being maneuvered into position to facilitate the advent of a new system that would be based on artificial intelligence, which we prefer to call technical intelligence, on that huge, extremely dense satellite network. Because if you believe that we have many satellites nowadays, it's peanuts. It's peanuts compared with what these guys had in mind.
I
SpaceX.
saw the numbers. It's not just Elon Musk, it's also
Yeah,
Amazon, and there are more.
yeah,
It's unbelievable the numbers they are trying to bring into the orbit. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so don't be surprised if any of this happens, and don't fall for it. Don't believe that these people are your liberators, that they are heroes, that all of this is done for the benefit of humanity. Um, it is problem reaction solution. They are letting the old guard, they are letting themselves, they are letting them, how do you say that? Weave the rope with which they will be hung.
Yeah.
They are letting them do that. They are letting them expose themselves. They are letting them pave the way of their own demise.
It is like martial arts. You tell a guy, yeah, come, and then he runs after you, step aside, and he jumps over the cliff. Yeah, yeah, just with a quick move. Yeah, yeah.
And so Punishing bad guys is really a great way to inaugurate your reign. The people love it when the bad
That's
guys
true.
get punished.
That's true.
People love it, and they will love you for it. And you will be able to provide that great contrast, because between all their horrible tyranny and your new system that will look so much better in comparison. And people will have been so traumatized by what they've just been through that they won't have much critical sense left. You know, they will embrace your new system wholeheartedly. And that new system will really provide you with a lot of buzz, with a lot of flashing lights and amazing toys and loud music, so that you're not the wiser. You know, you will be, well, you, not everyone who's listening to this, but you,
Hopefully.
figuratively meaning people, you know, people will be so excited by all this novelty and all this sense of relief and release that they won't look at it in a critical way. They won't look at it with discernment. And many will also believe that they have it figured out, you know. Once the old criminals are exposed, many people will believe, oh yeah, now we get it. Now we understand how it all worked. Not seeing that there are layers beyond how it all worked in the past that are actually based on the same principles, but in ways that are much more subtle and that look much more benign, much more benevolent. And I wouldn't be surprised if people who will be plugged into that satellite system through nanoparticles or whatever, these people might actually experience feelings of bliss
Yeah.
coming from the satellite network.
Yeah.
And as some say, there is no clarity in bliss.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
actually, they are losing their humanity. As we are speaking about crimes against humanity, it will look really, really beneficial, but actually, it is ripping people apart from their humanity because they will be blissing out and being this technical being, no pain, no suffering, everything is just hunky dory, we're just blissing out, we're just having fun, and losing themselves and what it means being human.
Yeah. And while you are being bombarded with frequencies of bliss, piggybacking on these frequencies could be subliminal messages intertwined with the bliss. And when you are blissing out, you open yourself completely because you know it feels so good. So it's like it's like a sugar high, really. Bliss is like a sugar high. So while you are opening themselves completely, what is, you know, coming in? Well, why not subliminal messages? I'm sure it would be that way, really. I'm absolutely 100% certain. So if that scenario becomes real, know that it's just a phase, you know. Don't fall for it and know that it's just a phase in the big process of revelation that we, humanity, are going through at the moment. It is not, definitely not the end all be all, it's a phase. And we'll go through it just like we are going through the corona insanity at the moment. And yeah, frankly, I would prefer by far to be in that other phase, the TI the TI satellites and the Starlink situation and the technological bliss. No, I would prefer for humanity to be processing that than what they are processing at the moment. Even though it's not really benevolent, even though it's deceitful, the current situation is so there. It is so unpleasant and violent and undesirable that I'd rather be in the next phase.
And actually, I believe that humankind, there are theories about that. Humankind has to evolve
Mm,
through different stages, like you as an individual have to go through different stages. And we all have been falling for the darkness. And coming out of the darkness, it is not unusual to fall for the false light
mm,
that is now giving you the blissing out option.
mm,
And that is really common in the New Age community, for example. Having all dealt with all of that old karmic stuff and all of that pain and guilt and suffering, then people go to the other extreme and
mm,
not realizing they still are not home with themselves. What is the final destination? Coming home to yourself and being centered and just being yourself and not fall for someone outside who
mm,
is giving you the orders. It may be an order of darkness or an order of light. If it is someone else's game, it's just not who you are, and it's just not your own journey. And so, but people have, maybe they have to go through these stages, and some will fall for it for a long, long time, and some will just dip their toes into it and realize, actually, yeah, this is a little bit feeling strange. Yeah, something isn't quite right here.
mm.
Yeah, and that's in the end we are coming home to ourselves and to the natural organic life and to who we truly are, and we're in peace. Yeah, final words for today, I think.
I believe this is going to be the conclusion,
Yeah.
Natalie.
Okay, thank you everybody, and I hope for all of you, you find some hope in this and some orientation what is happening at the moment, and some, yeah, hope and some
Yeah,
perspective.
yeah, we are definitely in favor of hope, not hopium. There is enough of that, and the next guys will definitely be big hopium providers. But hope, definitely, there's a lot of hope, and the situation is not as bleak as it seems by far. So cheer up, buckle up, stand up, and everything up until we meet again.
Okay, bye until next time.
Bye.